Good morning, good morning, everyone. Ricardo Wilkins, Microsoft Customer Success Manager, here for another session of C.U.T.E for Teams, Champions Using Teams Effectively. Glad to see you here today, live or on demand via YouTube. Lurking in the background, we also have Stacy joining us as well.
Yes, hi all, Stacy Miltenberger here.
Yep. And we're just glad to be here. Again, if you're new, this is a place you just come and geek out on Teams, come with your questions. This is like an office hour session. So you use your Q&A right now to put any questions you may have about Teams, and between Stacy and I, we hope we can answer them. Outside of answering questions, we usually try to come here with a topic to discuss that we think might be of interest, best practices. These days, since the clock is ticking for Skype deprecation, many times we try to come up with tips for anybody out there that might still be a Skype user transitioning to Teams. Try to make tips for that as well. So use your Q&A at any time right now or anytime through the session to put any questions you may have. But in the meantime, I did have some thoughts about some things to show. And one of the things I wanted to show, well, actually, I'll start with two things. First off is notifications. I'll talk about that just because there is a new update for the government cloud, government customers in terms of the notification settings in Teams. So let me show you that here. If you were to come into your settings, so hopefully you know this and are already using or fine-tuning your notifications. That's your profile pic here, settings, and then notifications. So that none of that's changed. But now when you go to notifications, it looks a little different. You essentially have some more options. And I'm going to jump out of here for a sec just to remind us that we already got some notification updates in terms of channel-specific notifications. So here in audit planning, how do I want my notifications to work for specifically this audit planning channel, the three dots, channel notifications. And you can see I can even go to something like custom. So this was relatively new. It's been out a while now, but this was the first kind of newness to the notifications. But now, in addition to that, coming up to your global notification settings, we now have some additional things. So certainly it looks a little different. Things are moved around a bit. But the main, gist of the newness is probably here. You get two, let's say, call them like stock kind of notification schemes. One is just all activity, give me notifications about everything. Then one that kind of dials it back a bit is just give me notifications about mentions and replies. So don't tell me everything, but certainly when I'm mentioned or replies, tell me that. And then custom. Now we can go in here and really fine tune things, whether it be, what happens with my personal mentions versus my team mentions. And even here, shown and pinned channels, what do we want to happen there? If I'm showing the channel versus hiding it, that probably means that's a channel I care about. And so for that, how do I want to get notifications? All the posts, do I want them? Maybe I do banner and feed. Maybe I want all the posts, but not the replies or something else. And then even for channel mentions, that's when someone uses the @ symbol and then puts the name of the channel in that @ mention. What do I want to happen there, right? So I might be interested in making sure I get a notification about my personal mentions, someone at Ricardo's, me, but maybe not for channel mentions, or maybe just in the feed as opposed to a pop-up. So this custom area, this whole new layout is new as of, I don't know, a few days or so. So you can kind of just see here, there's plenty to come in here and play around with. And I definitely recommend playing around in this area because, again, if you're new to Teams, notifications might not be a big deal. As you are using it more, as you're in 65 teams like I am in real life, this will be something you will want to manage, because what you don't want is the notifications to be so unmanageable that they're noise and you start to ignore them, right? So this lets you fine tune them so that you get you the way I always say it, so Teams talks to you the way you want to be talked to, right? If you want it to be chatty, this is where you tell it to be chatty. If you want it to be not so chatty, this is the place. So definitely, whether you're seeing the new stuff or the old stuff, definitely come in here and make sure this looks good to you. But this layout and some of these fine-tuned controls are new for the government cloud. For commercial, I think it's been there for a while. But in either case, highly recommend you make those settings in there. Okay. So I do see some Q&A questions. So will we be able to identify callers who only join a Teams meeting by using the call-in option? And I think by that you may be asking like by name. Certainly the number is shown. I'm assuming you're maybe asking, and Stacy maybe have the same thought, by name. Yeah, a name label on there.
Yeah, they have the caller ID, of course, that's associated when they call in. And other than saying number da 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 da, please identify yourself, there's no form or prior submission that would allow them to type in their name.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we agree on that, Ricardo.
Yeah. Or either of us knows about a roadmap item for that.
Yeah, no, I
feel like
don't.
I've heard that request before.
But what I could do is follow up with the asker and see what the potential future answer to that might be.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely, and if we get some answer there, we can certainly come back to this next session and bring that forward, or even maybe even paste it in this reply at some point. So that's a good question. Yeah.
Oh, here's an interesting angle on what Jess is asking. There's a question here that says she's wondering if they can answer by name. You know, she says, I have them listed in my contacts by the name. Would that show? And it would depend on if the contacts she's referencing are in Teams. Would imagine they could be. I'll get contact information and follow up, because I think we could do some testing, you and I, and give her the definitive answer there.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. In my real life meetings, I just can't remember ever seeing a caller. I don't get much call-ins in the meetings I'm in, but I never remember seeing a name to it. So that's my only thought there. But yeah, that's something we can follow up on and certainly test. Yeah. Okay. I am seeing a question about hosting public meetings for boards and staff and other audiences, and also the question of hosting those public meetings with the public needing to speak. So I got a few thoughts on that. I'll first say that your typical answer would normally be your large scale public meetings, live event. As you can see, I'm creating a new event. Live event is what you can schedule to create public meetings that allow for at least a Q&A interaction. What you guys are attending right now is a live event. To your point, this doesn't allow any of you to come off, quote unquote, come off mute and speak. Live event, the easy button, as I would call it, is what we're kind of doing here. That doesn't have a built-in, ability to speak, no bridge line or anything like that for the 20,000 attendees. The live event technology does have the capability, if you wanted to integrate a bridge line, I always say this is where you get your AV experts who know about video codecs and all of those kind of things. I know of customers who have integrated their own, bridge lines into their live events, but that it is not an easy button like, what I'm kind of showing here. Starting up a live event in 20 seconds with this 2-page piece. It involves some work. So the short answer I usually give is no, you can't, but it's also yes, you can if you were so inclined to put some effort into the configuration or the setup. I know that's kind of a weird answer. It's kind of a no and a yes. So hope that helps. The second way I'd answer it is that what is on the roadmap, what is coming soon, is taking our current 300-person meetings and expanding them to 1,000-way meetings. So if the size of your meeting is a part of the factor, but maybe not the scale of 10 to 20,000, but maybe 1,000 fits the needs, you'll now have a full-blown Teams meeting capability with 1,000, with a 1,000-person cap now as opposed to 300. And that meeting would have all the capabilities, including coming off mute, including controlling whether people can come off mute, hand raising, all of those kind of things. So for a lot of my customers who have been using live events because of either wanting it to be public or the scale of it, that's a game changer when it releases, because that will give them the option of using a normal Teams meeting, whereas before they would have used the live event just because purely of the number of attendees. So again, to your specific question, no, there's no audio for the 20,000 folks, but at least you will have audio for 1,000 folks once that 1,000-way meetings comes into play. And then at the bigger question of that, to your question of, how are people doing these public meetings again, these live events and normal Teams meetings, I have seen a lot of success among my customers who happen to be government customers who are doing public events that way, and board commission meetings, board meetings, things of that nature have been happening, especially the last year. I've seen them do that successfully over the past year at least. That'd be the way I'd answer that. Any thoughts on your end, Stacy, on that?
All on the same page with you. I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually excited for all of the folks that I work with who are doing a lot of live events, because the things coming on the roadmap, like that 1,000-way meeting, is just going to give a lot more flexibility for how they do it. And it's really nice, 1,000-way meetings plus the feature that's already there about being able to control whether people can come off mute. I feel like those two together really make a solid combination without what we call a hard mute. Then that 1,000-way meeting, as you could imagine, is easier to get out of control, right? If all 1,000 people could either come off mute or accidentally be off mute, and background noises and all that. So I would imagine your typical person is doing a public meeting with this future 1,000-way meeting feature is going to turn on the hard mute so that, yes, 1,000 people are in here, but they can't unmute themselves until I go and give them the permission individually, or turn that feature off. So you'll be able to control what could that ambient noise. Yeah.
And it occurs to me that the raise hand feature then becomes so key and is something that in the front of a meeting with, any amount of participants, it's certainly a good idea to set the stage for when it's appropriate to use a raised hand and how to use the raised hand. And that way, your audience knows that, yes, when I join, I'm muted, but if I have something that I need to say or am invited to participate in, I can raise my hand and then have the organizer give me permission to come off of mute.
kind of see that button there. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm trying to remember if I've ever shown this in these sessions, but we can show what, let's say, our friend Deborah here would experience if I go ahead and get the join. Let's do it here. Join info. Go over here to Deborah. Let's paste that in.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and.
Looks like you switched.
Here, now maybe I can speak. Can you hear me, Ricardo?
Yep, I hear you now.
So I was just going to suggest that this office hours is a brief glance at some of these, but for a deep dive into some of these settings, we have a session coming up next week. Reach out to your CSM, or if you need the information about the session, please put in the comment and I'll be happy to follow up with you. We have a deep dive session during the meeting that's going to cover all of these settings that Ricardo's about to do a quick drive-by taste of. And everything that you would need to know as a meeting organizer to control it for any kind of input or any kind of meeting you may conduct will be covered in that session next week. And it will be recorded and you'll have availability or the ability to review it later if you can't make it. But registration is still open for that. So let us know if you need the link and I'll pop it in.
Yeah. And that would be good because I don't think I can adequately demo it here because I don't have mics in this demo environment, so it's not really the best representation here. But if we use our imagination, essentially there would be scenarios where Nestor would raise their hand and then I would be able to go in and give Nestor the ability to unmute himself. But yeah, I have to figure out how to get my demo environment to be able to properly show that.
I think it's just interesting to take a look at Nestor's toolbar across the top because he is hard muted. It showed, I think it showed, his icon for the microphone didn't just have the slash through it like it does for when he's muted. It actually had that additional like no circle
Right.
where he is actually hard muted. So even if he clicks that button 1,000 times, it's not going to give him the control to unmute and speak unless that's given to him by the administrator and the organizer.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, I don't have, I guess I wasn't prepared for that demo because this isn't a good setup, but I'll keep that in mind maybe for a future session to get the right. I probably just need 2 clients to really make that 2 clients as opposed to the browser to really make that demo shine. But at least conceptually, we've talked about it and at least shown the option for it there. Awesome. And then in the last few minutes here, I did want to also show another one that I get a lot of questions about, which is tenant switching. So in a nutshell, so what is that? When you are invited to be a guest in another person's team who is outside of your tenant, that is called guest access and puts you in a position where you're now a member of 2 different tenants. From an end user perspective, and I hate using that tenant word, it's kind of technical because from an end user perspective, you're just trying to collaborate with someone. What is this whole tenant thing, right? And in fact, how do I know if they're in a different tenant or if they're in my tenant? But at the end of the day, if someone does invite you, you could be in a position like Deborah here, where if you'll notice, she has this accounts and orgs, you all do, but maybe yours doesn't have another org in it. If we click on Deborah's, we'll see, of course, what's going on here with her. We should see, we were supposed to see, let me do a refresh, see her in 2 tenants. Accounts and orgs, and of course, I'm going to sign out. This is always the way you fix problems that happen in the world, is you sign out and sign back in. especially when you're demoing live. Always happens. Going back.
No worries.
Yeah.
We're hanging in there. I am going to share the link for the Teams Meetings for Government webinar series. I will share that to the one individual who asked, and I'll also publish it for the audience as well.
Awesome. Okay, Deborah doesn't want to cooperate today, but I'm going to go ahead and show you at least what this is supposed to look like. So let's go at least to, let's see, let's go to, this is Deborah, yep, that's Deborah, okay. Let's go to her email. What I did is in my commercial tenant, I did invite Deborah into a team in a whole separate tenant. And you can see here when that happened, Deborah got an email saying that MOD was the administrator and that other tenant has added you as a guest to Contoso, the name of that tenant. This is the team. And when she basically has this invite here to go ahead and join that team. When I click it, I'm going to go ahead and launch it in the web app. And this will probably fix my little tenant switcher problem too. But we'll see us thinking about it. And when it's done, it has now gone, again, this is Deborah. I don't know if you noticed she was in a bunch of teams before, but now she's in teams with far fewer things on her left rail and only one team here. So she is in another tenant. And now my drop down is working, right? So she is a tenant or a member of the Contoso. They happen to both be named Contoso, but company A and guest in company B. So in company B or Contoso guest, she has some limited access to things. She has only access to the team she's been added to. You can see a few other things that a guest by default, doesn't get. She can't make new tabs here. She can't schedule a meeting. She doesn't have a calendar here. She could start up a meet now, which is nice. But she can certainly interact in terms of chat, in terms of files. She can see the files in this team, add new ones, edit these. She can even come into chat and chat with people in this tenant. So you notice if I start up a new one and start to talk, to try to chat with Ricardo, there is a Ricardo in my government tenant. There's also Ricardo here in my commercial tenant, as well as a tag related to Ricardo. So she's chatting with this tenant in her chat, and so forth. So when she's done with that collaboration, she can then go back to her tenant, and after some thinking, it will eventually kick her back into her tenant as well. So they're very separated, but does allow her to switch back and forth for that collaboration. So again, if you've never been invited, this is the first time you get invited. That's what it will be, a receipt of an email, and then from that point on, you'll be having that tenant switching concept. So you can see now she's back. She's got all her stuff there, all of her teams and whatnot. Okay. So I did want to just show that concept, and also though show that email that she got, because often many times that's a missed piece. Is there is an email invitation, and what I've done is connected two people who are already using Teams, already in Office 365. That's a more seamless process. If Deborah was a Gmail user or Yahoo or something like that, she can also be a guest in the team, but there would be a few more steps, and maybe in a future session I'll show that if that's of interest. There would be a few more steps in terms of associating her Gmail credentials with the new tenant. So again, it is possible to do it, but it's a couple more steps than what we're seeing here. But never seen this email. This is what it looks like to be invited to a new team, and then from that point on, you are in the tenant switching game. You will have a tenant to switch to, and it doesn't just have to be two. I mean, I think I'm in 8 tenants, so that list could get long as you keep getting invites from other tenants. So I thought that'd be useful to show. Right here, my Ricardo account has not been invited to anything. I wanted to keep this one clean just to kind of show the difference. But once Ricardo would be invited, it would be here in the accountant orgs. Depending on what version of your client you're running, I mean, it's in accountant orgs, or maybe it's a drop down to the left of your profile. That was the older UI. But if you're on a more up-to-date client, you should be seeing it here. So that's the tenant switching concept. Hopefully that's helpful to kind of just see that happen if you haven't seen it before. One last thing I'll show just because it's quick. Again, this is also relatively new and small. See, this is the place you come to see these very small little subtle features. Nobody else on the web is going to show you this. You get it here and here only. It's exclusive.
That's right. That's right. Very exclusive. Awesome.
Right. Yeah. If I'm here in Teams and I hover over Nestor, I get a profile card. And that's been there, but what maybe it's new to you, and again, this is the government client. This isn't quite so new in the commercial client, but for government customers, hovering and getting this profile card that also has the drop down with the additional info is relatively new. If nothing else, this is cool just because how often do you need to get that email address, and now you have this quick, easy little copy button to grab their email address. So I like that part. But certainly you see their presence and can do quick chats with them. The quick chat piece I think is really also useful in meetings. If I can fire up a meeting here real quick, but well, I won't even fire up the meeting, but to be in a meeting, go over the participants list, see someone, and then do a quick, basically side conversation, directly to them right here in this profile card, or even clicking and just going right over to the full chat for them is useful. So you may not want to chat to the whole meeting to say something to Nestor. So you're going to say something directly to him in a one-to-one chat, and that profile card gets you one click away from doing that. So nothing else, that's a useful feature there, but yes, it's pretty cool to see that additional info, be able to click that. And I think more things are coming down in this area too, but this is kind of version 1 for the government client in terms of the profile card. So good stuff there.
Yeah.
So I hope that was helpful. Again, I definitely want to reiterate that in Q&A right now, Stacy has put the chat to our Teams meetings for government webinar series. We've already had one session and 2 or 3 weeks worth are coming. So you want to register for those using that link for sure. And I'll also put it in the Q for Teams placeholder after this meeting is done as well.
Yeah, and because I don't think we hammered on really what the entire series is trying to accomplish. It's focused on Teams meetings, and the session we already had was the before the meeting session. There will be a recording available for that. The before the meeting focused on the things that the organizer can do to control who has access to present, who has access to speak, who has access to chat, and all of that when they originally scheduled a meeting. We also covered the importance of creating an agenda and making sure that your folks, when they join, know what to expect. We also have the 3 additional topics being covered over the course of May. May 12th at 1 o'clock Eastern, we'll be talking about during the meeting. And that's why I referenced that when Ricardo was covering those meeting options during the meeting to turn off hard mute or turn on hard mute. It can be engaged as the meeting is going. Also, the 3rd session, which is May 19th at 1 o'clock Eastern, is after the meeting. So sharing the outcomes from your meetings, making sure that the productivity is driven from these meetings. And then the last session is on May 26th at 1 o'clock. It's Teams meetings, best practices, security, and the additional roadmap items that we'll want you to be tuned in for. So hope to see you register for those.
Yeah, and if it's not clear, this isn't just FY info we're giving you. This is me and Stacy's team, right? So Stacy has presented already. I'll be presenting. So you know, if you're like what you see in these sessions from us and our peers, we'll be doing these sessions as well. So we're not just kind of handing you off to some other folks. This is the CSMs in the state and local government space doing
Right.
these. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Hopefully that doesn't make you not come. Like I picked up from Pardo and Stacy. I don't need, you know, another session. Awesome. All right.
Well, we're at time and there's nothing in no new items for us. So
Awesome. Well, we're glad everybody was able to join us one more time. And again, we will be here next week and continue to chat about teams. So glad you could join us, and we'll see you next week.
thanks, everybody.